Welcome to the October 2nd edition of Colorado Inside Out Postgame, a special web exclusive production here on Channel 12. Let's get a quick take on the decision of the Boulder City Council to halt their bike lane program, which was hailed by many as a big deal. We usually start with Patty, but we're going to change things up a little bit with this time. Ben Gelt, political consultant, you have some pretty good knowledge about this topic. What do you feel about it?
Well, you know, I was disappointed with the action from the council. I know that it was a little bit painful, or a lot of it painful, according to some, for residents in Boulder, but I think that there's a cultural shift that needs to occur in urban areas, in areas that are seeing fast-paced development and growth. We need to start changing the infrastructure that we put in place to accommodate the growth and to allow people to move around cities. I certainly understand that people in Boulder were unhappy with some of the effects of this experimental bike lane. My view is it was an 8-month project. They should have let it run to really be able to evaluate the data and make a decision made on data, not on emotion and feeling, and I think I'm taking longer to commute. So it's hard. There's a lot of this going on around the country. In the metro area, there's a huge need, in my view, to begin to make additional infrastructure investments to go along with the growth. And if we keep doing things to just put the car first and allow cars to move around, we're going to continue to have these problems with traffic and parking and congestion and smog. You know, Denver just got a rebuke yesterday from the EPA that we're still emitting way too much pollution. So it just strikes me that there is going to be a pain point, and we're going to have to suck it up and have some cultural shifts here.
Patty Calhoun from Westward, do you think Colorado's ready for some cultural shifts? We are very pro-bike, but we're also very pro-car. If we have to make a decision, which way is it going to go?
Well, and we are also very approaching winter. And at that point, bicycles are just not as practical in a snowy climate. So I see, if Boulder realized they were having problems, Boulder, arguably the most liberal city council in the entire state, if they realized they needed to pull the plug on part of this, it's not like they're getting rid of all bike lanes. There are still parallel bike lanes 1 or 2 streets over. They're just getting rid of the ones that really clog traffic. There are still cars allowed in Boulder, and they have to be able to get through Boulder, or I would guess those city council people will be the ones who hit the big roadblock and they would have had their seats pulled.
David Copeland of the Independence Institute, a Boulderite, so you have personal knowledge of the situation. What's your take?
Boulder is a silver level city, according to the United Nations, as being one of the great cities in the world for bike accessibility, for how many bike lanes they have. And when I've visited, you know, Washington, D.C. or Buenos Aires, where bike lanes and isolated bike paths, which are the best, are much fewer, you can really see the wisdom of Boulder's long-term infrastructure investment in making Boulder a very bikeable city. And that's, I think, something that is supported just about unanimously by the people in Boulder. The problem with this particular project was it was taking a functional street which had 2 lanes of traffic in one direction and turning one of the, it didn't expand the infrastructure, it just rearranged it in a way that was, first of all, extremely ugly. Second of all, made it impossible to do snow removal in the winter. Third, greatly increased the problems that Ben talked about, like congestion and air pollution, because cars were idling so long, and was a huge impediment to automobile mobility for little gain, practically speaking, for the bicycles. So I don't think on anything that when we go through culture shifts, the way to do it is by going out of your way to mainly impose pain on people who you think the culture should be shifting against. And that, you know, rather the culture shifts should be accomplished by making whatever culture you're moving towards better and more open and more available, and letting it thrive itself rather than through punitive actions against people you think are culturally backwards. And Boulder's bike policy had until now been on the pro-bike, let's help bikers, rather than on the let's punish drivers for being evil thinkers and behaving wrong. And I'm glad the City Council has returned to the more moderate position of you can be pro-bike without being anti-driver.
Eric Sonderman, political analyst. Now, this is not the last time we'll be talking about bicycle issues. I think just a couple of weeks ago, Governor Hickenlooper announced that he wants to put $100 million towards making Colorado a more bike-friendly state. We've seen Denver officials talk about how it's okay, it's congested. That might force people to seek other forms of transportation. So this is bound to be a conversation we continue. What are your thoughts about this particular issue in Boulder?
I think you set it up well, Dominic, and I think you have to find a balance there. I'm with Patty in the sense of, I don't know the particulars of the Boulder controversy, but I know that there's no more green city council in North America than the Boulder City Council. And if they pull the plug on this, maybe it was a flawed design, a flawed experiment. It is not a commentary on the value of bicycling or bike lanes in any broad sense. I love the fact that Colorado is a very bike-friendly state. Bicycling personally is my main form of exercise and recreation these days. I love the fact that that anywhere you go around Denver or the metro area these days, you're encountering lots of bicycles. It is a new factor. It is a new part of the urban and even the suburban fabric around here. But I do think there are win-win solutions here, and it doesn't need to be. When I hear a lot of rhetoric about we're going to force people out of cars, we're going to make commuting as tough as possible to force people out of cars, I don't think that's the answer. I don't think you try to prejudice people against one form of transportation. Maybe you incentivize them toward a different form of transportation. But we talked, I think Ben talked about the study that got released yesterday, ozone and smog and all the rest. And that's a complicated issue, but I know what the answer is not. The answer is not to have people sitting in congestion with cars idling. That does not help that problem at all. It's nuanced, it's balanced. I hope we become more bike friendly, but not necessarily at the expense of other forms of transportation.
Well, that is all the time we have for Colorado Inside Out postgame this week. Leave us a comment, tell us what you think. For everyone here at CPT12.org, I'm Dominic Dezzutti. Thanks for watching.